Okay, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Thank you for being here. This is a press conference with Congressman Bishop joining us, and a very diverse group of organizations to discuss the problems with fast-tracking the Trans-Pacific Partnership. It sums up this a little bit in this wonderful poster which I made, and then it was redone by somebody so it would look presentable. It shows democracy going one direction and the Trans-Pacific Partnership going the other direction. I want to introduce some of the organizations that are here with us this morning. I'll do the youth groups that are not with the Long Island Federation of Labor first. We have MoveOn.org. We have Concerned Citizens from the Food and Water Watch. We have the Long Island Progressive Coalition. We have Jobs with Justice, Long Island Jobs with Justice. We have Labor Lines is here, Big Fusco. We have the South Country Peace Group. We have Veterans for Peace. We have Earth Keepers from the Unitarian Universalist Federation. We have Impact the Planet. And from the Long Island Federation of Labor, we have the Communications Workers of America. We have two unions, Local 1108 and the Local 1104. We have the United Auto Workers, Local 259. We have the International Association of Machinists, District 15. We have SEIU, Local 1199, Service Employees. We have IBW, Local 1049, Local 25. We have CSEA, Nick Lamort. We have the Painters, District Council 9. And I think I have listed everybody. And we have NICEN. Didn't get on my list. Okay, great. And we have some of our board members are here from the Long Island Federation of Labor. Michelle Lynch from 1199, Harry Esposito here from the Machinists Union, Nick Lamort from CSEA, Donnie Dunn from CWA, Ron Smith is from NICEN. Okay, who did I leave out? And the Sierra Club is here. Thank you. Okay. Now, I want to start this discussion by thanking Congressman Bishop for standing up for the middle class and did a good job. The Trans-Pacific Partnership does exactly the opposite. And you're going to hear from a diverse group of organizations why that is and exactly what the impact will be on our workforce as well as our way of life that we've come to appreciate in Long Island. So without any further delay, Congressman Bishop.
Good morning to all of you, and thank you all very much for coming out. And let me thank Roger Clayman and the Long Island Fed, and particularly Michael Gendron and CWA for helping to bring us all together here this morning. And I'm honored to join my colleagues in labor and my colleagues in the worker advocacy community to both raise the issue of how important it is to stop both Fast Track Authority and the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and to urge my colleagues in the Congress to do the very same thing. Now, the principal obligation I think all of us in public life have right now is to see to it that we help to create an economy that provides good, solid, middle-class jobs. And this potential agreement, as Roger suggested, takes us in the exact opposite direction. And we have two interconnected, although distinct issues. There is the issue of Fast Track Authority, which, as many of you know, was approved most recently approved in 2002, and it expired in 2007. It is not necessary. I mean, you can negotiate a trade agreement without fast-track authority. However, having fast-track authority greatly facilitates the negotiation of trade agreements. So in this particular instance, and by the way, fast-track authority was last after I said in 2002. I was not a member of the Congress at that time, although that was during my first campaign, and I made it clear at that time that I would have voted no had I been a member of Congress with the opportunity. We've got two issues. One, with respect to the authority, Congress has to have a role. Congress has a constitutional role to play, and we are the ones responsible for representing the best interests of our constituents. And fast-track authority eliminates that role. So, in and of itself, in my view, fast-track authority is detrimental to the interests of the people we represent, particularly detrimental to the interests of workers. With respect to the Trans-Pacific Partnership, this is a trade agreement that we simply should not engage in. And I say that for three reasons. One, and I think most importantly, there is little question that it will accelerate the movement of jobs offshore. And we have a great deal of that already, a point that I'm going to return to in a second. But this partnership deals more so with service-related jobs than does NAFTA, for example, which is more about manufacturing jobs. And service-related jobs are the easiest jobs to move offshore. So from that vantage point, we should be resisting the TPP. From the vantage point of protecting the environment, this is also, in my view, something that takes us in the wrong direction. And then lastly, from the vantage point of the products we would be importing. We would be importing products that would not be subject to the same standards, the same consumer protections, the same quality control standards that exist in this country. So from every vantage point, from the vantage point of jobs, from the vantage point of the economy, from the vantage point of the environment, and from the vantage point of basically consumer safety and consumer protection, the Trans-Pacific Partnership is something that we should not be supporting. I'm one of about 130 colleagues in the House that signed a letter to the President a couple of months ago urging him not to pursue fast-track authority and not to pursue the Trans-Pacific Partnership, at least in its current form. This is an issue where I think we have some real opportunity for the Congress to weigh in and assert its will, but we need more members to join the 120 or 130 of us that signed that letter. Let me just make one last point and then I'll yield. One of the issues that I have been the most engaged in is the issue of stopping the offshoring of jobs, and particularly as it relates to the offshoring of call center jobs. And I'm joined by Michael Gendron from CWA. CWA has been absolutely vital in this effort. We have lost 500,000 call center jobs in the last 5 years. 500,000 call center jobs have moved offshore. And so I am the principal author of a piece of legislation that has bipartisan support that would say to companies that if you want to offshore jobs, okay, but here's what your consequence is. Your consequence is that you would be no longer eligible for any loan, grant, or contract administered by the federal government. And so I'm hopeful. As I say, we have bipartisan support in the House. Senator Casey has introduced the companion legislation in the Senate. I'm hopeful that we can make a move here. Now, call center offshoring jobs is just one piece of our economy, but 500,000 good, solid, middle-class jobs that pay $40,000 and $50,000 a year. Those are the kinds of jobs that we need to keep here in this country, and those are the kinds of jobs, the loss of which will be accelerated if we continue to pursue the Trans-Pacific Partnership. So I'm delighted to see so many of you here. I hope my colleagues in Congress hear the collective voice that you are raising, and I certainly hope the administration hears it as well. Thank you.
Congressman Steve Israel wanted to be with us today, but he could not because of his schedule. He has a representative here. Harrison Boyer is representing Congressman Israel, who is, like Congressman Bishop, with us, has signed on to the letter authored by Rosa DeLauro, and is against fast track for TPP. You're going to hear from several different perspectives briefly on this, and then when we're done, there'll be a chance for questions for different sectors of our labor movement and the way they would be impacted, as well as others who may be able to answer some of the questions you may have. I would like to introduce Michael Gendron, who is the Executive Vice President of CWA Local 1108, who will give a perspective from their impact on jobs in the telecommunications industry.
Thank you, Roger. As Roger said, I'm Michael Gendron, Executive Vice President of CWA Local 1108. I want to thank Congressman Tim Bishop, Congressman Steve Israel, and all the allied groups here to come out and up against this country entering into another trade agreement that will do nothing more than have the effect of exporting millions of jobs overseas, shutting plants, wreaking financial ruin on our communities, as the previous trade agreements have done. And this trade agreement, Trans-Pacific Partnership, has been referred to as NAFTA on steroids. And one of the worst parts about this trade agreement is that it's presently being negotiated and bargained in secret with over 600 corporate leaders from Wall Street, with 11 countries that border the Pacific, with other countries just licking their chops to get in on this. All at the exclusion of our elected leaders in Congress, members like Congressman Bishop and Congressman Israel. And they're going to be asked to vote on this bill with a procedure called fast track, like Congressman Bishop said. Now, they're not going to be given prior information about the bill. They'll be asked to vote yes or no, blindly. And it'll take us years before we really find out what the impact of this trade agreement will be. One of the things that we do know is that any of the multinational corporations or the countries that are involved in this trade agreement will have the right to challenge any U.S. laws that protect our jobs and our work. Just like the one that Congressman Bishop talked about, the call center bill. That if there's a call center in the Philippines or in one of the Koreas, they would be able to challenge that law, all because that law will impact their expected future profits. This is another trade agreement that will just further our race to the bottom. American workers are expected to compete for work and jobs against workers that make a fraction of what we make. Corporate profits will go up, Wall Street will make more money than ever, and yet our wages, our benefits, and our collective bargaining agreements will continue to erode. So the time is for this country to get into trade agreements that put American workers first. So I urge all the members of Congress to vote no on TPP, and I thank Congressman Bishop and Congressman Israel for standing strong with all of us. Thank you.
And just to follow up briefly what Michael said, we want to thank Congressman Bishop, Congressman Israel, and I want to add that Congresswoman Carolyn McCarthy is also supportive of us. However, Congressman Meeks and Congressman King are going in the other direction, like that arrow up there on the side. So when we're done, we'll talk about what a big and diverse group like this can do about it. I want to introduce from MoveOn.org, the regional director of MoveOn.org, Lisa Oldendorf, who will give us another perspective on the problems with TPP.
Thank you very much. Today I represent thousands of MoveOn members on Long Island who oppose Fast Track and the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement, as well as millions of MoveOn members across the country. Other speakers today will focus on the effects of Fast Track and TPP on American workers and their jobs and the environment. I would like to speak about how Fast Track will affect our democracy. In short, Fast Track legislation would allow the TPP and other trade agreements to be signed by the executive branch before the public ever gets the opportunity to review what's been proposed. It would then rush them through Congress, circumventing ordinary review, amendment, and debate procedures. It eliminates our time-honored system of checks and balances. Under Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, Congress has the exclusive authority to regulate commerce among nations. Fast Track is an undemocratic process, first used by President Nixon in 1973, that hands much of this authority over to the executive branch. The elements that Fast Track gives away to the President, U.S. Trade Representative Michael Froman, and 600 corporate advisors are the power to select trade agreements, the power to set the terms of these agreements, the power to sign the agreements before Congress votes for them, the power to write legislation that changes existing U.S. laws, the power to circumvent ordinary committee review. This legislation is submitted directly for mandatory expedited votes. The power to override congressional leaders' control of House and Senate floor schedules. The power to override normal voting procedures. There is a ban on all amendments unless all the countries involved agree. And finally, debate time would be curtailed to about 20 hours. I don't know about you, but I elected my representatives in the House and Senate so that they would have input on the laws and agreements that are passed in our country. I did not elect over 600 corporate advisors to make rules behind closed doors. These advisors are not accountable to the American people. Their only interest is corporate profit for their shareholders, not the health and welfare of hardworking American citizens. I want my representatives in Congress to weigh in on the whole text of the TPP and future trade agreements before they vote on them. I want them to have the right to make the changes that will protect the interests of the American people. Over 151 Democratic representatives in the House and 27 Republicans have publicly announced their opposition to Fast Track. They do not want to give away their constitutional authority over trade. Millions of Americans agree. We don't want over 600 unelected corporate advisors dictating our laws through trade agreements. This is undemocratic. It is sneaky, backdoor diplomatic legislation, and we the people firmly oppose and reject it. Both the public and Congress must have a role in establishing trade agreements. Good citizen groups must have some input to protect the public welfare. Opposing Fast Track is all about upholding the sovereignty of our national laws. Our laws should not have to comply with trade agreements made by unelected corporate advisors who do not represent we, the people. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. First, before Dan comes up to speak, I want to acknowledge that Lisa Tyson is here, who is the Executive Director of the Long Island Progressive Coalition. And she brings with her many organizations who are supportive of this issue. Speaking from that perspective is Dan Fingus, who's the Organizing Director of the Long Island Progressive Coalition, and I know that Dan a little bit about his history. I know he's from the Detroit area, so he knows what the impact of bad trade policy is firsthand. Dan?
Thank you, Roger. The Long Island Progressive Coalition and its members across Long Island are opposed to the Trans-Pacific Partnership and its Fast Track. Quite simply, TPP is just bad for Long Islanders. This trade deal will erode environmental protections and threaten our economy. We thank Congressman Bishop for his strong leadership and Congressman Israel and Congresswoman McCarthy for their support and standing against fast track of TPP, but we urge all congresspersons from Long Island to stand with him against the TPP. TPP fast track removes the voice of the people from the process and hands the power to corporations and their corporate advisors. Long Islanders need for the entire Long Island congressional delegation to stand up for the people in our communities and reject the fast track of TPP. This huge trade deal is not only about trade, it's also about weakening bank regulations, eroding environmental protections, and threatening jobs on Long Island. Long Island cannot afford TPP. Thank you.
We're going to open it up for questions that you may have. I just want to say that the trade issues is a very long road to the American labor movement. We've been fighting this issue for years and years, fighting the loss of good American jobs, not just simply because we don't believe there ought to be opportunities in other countries to grow and to produce an export product, but they also need to build their own infrastructure and their own society so that they have a consuming culture as well. The trade agreements that have been sold to the American public have never done what they were built up to do. We've always been told that they'll create jobs. We're now at the 2014 marks the 20th anniversary of NAFTA, and we can mark a loss of 700,000 jobs since the passage of NAFTA. We can measure the impact of the great gains we were supposed to receive by opening up China, and we have now lost 2.7 million U.S. jobs, 2.1 million in manufacturing since 2001. So the agreements don't do what they're supposed to do, and there's no reason why there can't be trade that improves the economy on both ends of the spectrum. We'll open it up for any questions you may have to anybody here as been spoken, or any of the other unions representing other sectors if you have them. Yes.
James Bedore with Newsday. Congressman, can you talk a little bit about the mechanics of getting enough signatures, getting up enough no votes so fast track doesn't happen? You have a Republican House, as you know very well. The president is for this. You have a Democratic Senate. How do you actually stop this? You have about 150 people saying no so far.
It's going to be a challenge. No question about it. We have about 150 Dems who have said no. As we heard from Lisa, we have about 27 Rs in the House who thus far have said no. There is a bipartisan bill. I believe it's Senator Baucus, although I'm not sure who will take over leadership of it since Senator Baucus is leaving the Senate, as you know. And then there's Dave Camp, who is the chairman of Ways and Means in the House. Comes with bipartisan bill to introduce, to allow for fast track authority. One of the things I think is going to be very important in the House is that Sandy Levitt, who is viewed by both sides of the aisle as a leader on trade issues, has come out quite forcefully in opposition both to fast track and to trade promotion authority, and to the TPP. And I think that is going to resonate through the House. I think that's going to bring more Dems to the table than where we are right now. And I think it's going to bring some R's to the table as well. But you have pretty much encapsulated the challenge here. It's a Republican House and a Democratic president who are pushing for these two things. We have our work cut out for us. And one of the things that I think is so encouraging is to see so many people from so many different constituencies here this morning, and I hope this kind of thing gets replicated across the country. I hope that answers your question.
Could I just add one thing? Just to piggyback what Tim just said, is that, so in order to get that done, is that members of Congress need to hear from us, their constituents, because they know that if they hear from the constituents, they're going to, act and vote in that direction. So it's important that there be a groundswell from all of us to let them know that we're all against TPP.
If the Republicans won't give Obama anything, why are they giving him this? Why aren't they opposing this just to make him look bad?
You of course know that consistency is overrated, right? Historically, Republicans have been very sympathetic to trade agreements, and for the most part, Democrats have been have challenged trade agreements. And I think that sort of philosophy is what's holding sway here, as opposed to a knee-jerk reaction that's simply that if the president wants it, then they're going to.
But the far right of the Republican movement was very much against these agreements. I remember speaking of Pat Buchanan when we were down demonstrating against NAFTA, and that wing of the party was totally against these type of things. How do we make a message to the Tea Party congressman saying, hey, this isn't what you want either?
The motivating elements of the Tea Party is what at least they view as adherence to the Constitution. Article 1, Section 8 makes it pretty clear that this is an area of congressional authority as opposed to executive authority. And who knows? I mean, they may, I don't know the composition of the 27 Rs who have signed on, but there may well be a groundswell from the far right joining the 150-some Dems who are opposed. We're opposed because we want to protect American jobs, we want to protect the economy, protect the environment. They may be opposed for other reasons.
Another question? Yes.
I have a question. President Obama, who has made a theme in his administration to help the middle class, the unemployed, with Obamacare trying to help the people who don't have health insurance, why would you be supporting something that seems to be undermining the common man, the common woman? I'm just throwing that out.
Was that directed at me?
Yeah.
I think what the president's position is that we need to be active participants in the global economy, and that this is a means by which that can happen. This is an area in which I, at least as Congressman Israel, and I have an honest disagreement with the president and the administration. I don't want to, and by the way, I'm not going to characterize pejoratively anyone who is on the opposite side of this issue. I think our job is to make the case as positively and as aggressively as we possibly can for what we think is the right trade policy.
James?
Roger, you mentioned NAFTA, which is now 20 years old as of this month. Can you and your colleagues talk about, since that's an agreement we have, and we have some experience with it, what has it meant to Long Island? Because it could be a precursor to what TPP could do. What has NAFTA meant to Long Island's economy and Long Islanders?
Okay, we'll give you a couple of examples, but I would say that there's a big change between 2001, the early days of NAFTA, and today, and that is the decline of manufacturing on Long Island as well as throughout the country. Approximately 158,000 jobs lost in New York State, generally, since that time. Scott, you may want to talk about some of the impacts in the auto industry and the way it may have impacted us here. And
well, the biggest thing we've got with our international UAW, I mean, there's a very serious trade deficit between Japan and the United States. Japan basically imports 130 cars to our export of one car to Japan, and that is a serious loss of jobs. And that's a big problem for our industry. That's why, when we had the bailout, as they called it, but it was really a restructuring of GM and Chrysler to bring them back into the fold instead of eliminating, because Ford would have gone down too. We basically need to get jobs back into this country and not send all our jobs overseas. And this Trans-Pacific Partnership would do just that. It would send more jobs overseas.
James, it's a little harder now to just say that this or that plant will close as a result of this because there's so little manufacturing left. I mean, there certainly is manufacturing on Long Island, but the widespread large union facilities are no longer here. However, the problem with the TPP as well as the trade agreements we've been addressing are the opportunities for investment and to change rules about procurement. And this affects public service as well. So we may find that some of the issues that Nick Lamort has been working very diligently to raise the standards of public workers could be challenged by an outside contractor, for example, that would claim it an unfair trade practice to limit the use of outside contractors. And that whole movement in services is one that we need to be very careful on Long Island as well as everywhere else in the country.
Ladies.
You know, George H. Bush came into office talking about a new world order. And it seems that it's come to pass with all of the steps that have been taken along the way, including trade agreements. And it's to me, completely a drive to the bottom. Instead of lifting up world standards, because these trade agreements not only are not good for us, they are devastating to these communities, third world countries. And so there's some other agenda, it seems, that's going on that's tied to this. And as I said, it's not a term that was coined, by people, by government, the New World Order. And how much is this, related to transnational corporations really running the world?
Well, I think you answered the question. I mean, if we look at Walmart, for example, in the supply chain, it has a very distinct downward pressure on wages and working conditions wherever they may set up the suppliers, particularly in the garment industry. And the fire in Bangladesh is a perfect example. So now we have time for just a few more questions. I want to make certain we've got our media folks.
Yeah, hi. I'm Bill. My name is Bill Coquel, and Husbands for Peace. And I'm also a disabled veteran myself. And I would like to just, I'm getting an education. I appreciate it, but I hear a lot about the lack of jobs and so forth. And I just want to say that as we speak, there's 310,000 children on Long Island who are food challenged. And also, you have veterans coming back from God knows where, Syria, Afghanistan, and Iraq, coming back here, and they were promised when they joined, if they joined the military in 2003, they were promised by Bush that they would get a college education and a job, guaranteed. And I remember standing over in Patchogue, arguing with the recruiters and telling them you cannot guarantee a job in this economy. That was in 2003. And here we are now, we're talking again about losing jobs in America. We talk a lot about today, I heard middle class, but more and more people are falling through the net because of the lack of jobs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congressman, can you talk about the time frame here? As you said, a bill has been introduced into the House and to the Senate. Obviously, there's some people who are opposed, there's some people who are for it. I don't believe we've had hearings yet. It hasn't gone to a committee. What's the time frame? If people want to contact their congressperson, how long do they have? Is there going to be a vote tomorrow?
No. The bill was introduced on January 9th. The Fast Track Authority bill was introduced on January 9th. The Trans-Pacific Partnership is still under negotiation, so it is not yet ready for presentation to the Congress under any circumstance, under whether we have fast track or no fast track. But I would urge people to make their opinions known now. The timing is unknown, James. I mean, in the House, the House leadership, the Republican leadership of the House has made it pretty clear that they don't expect to take up too many controversial items between now and November. What they have said is that they expect to, try to pass appropriations bills to keep the Congress running or keep the country running. And then they also say they expect to pass what they refer to as message bills designed that they have no expectation that it will become law, but they're designed to send some form of message. We've done a fair amount of that, you may have noticed. So the timing is unknown, but I would say that it is not imminent.
Thank you.
One of the arguments typically made quietly on these type of trade bills is that they tend to bind the nations together so we don't have wars with each other. Now, right now, you have some saber rattling between China and Japan. Is that to put pressure on nations like ours to go with this thing? Because they would love this.
My own view is that foreign policy as it relates to our relationship with other countries in terms of developing allies and so on. That is not part of the dynamic here. The dynamic here for those who are pursuing it is to, in their view, open up markets that would otherwise be unavailable to us, and in the process, hopefully create jobs. As Roger has said, the experience with trade agreements has been the exact opposite. But I don't think that there is an effort here to, if you will, use the soft power of America to obviate the requirement that we might use our hard power.
Well, it won't be less likely to use it against China, which owns half of us?
I would hope that that is off the table under any
Congressman has a tight schedule. We're going to take one more question, then we'll talk for a minute about what it is we have to do. Yeah.
This actually is not a question so much as a comment. This skirmish, if you will, can only be won by the power of the people. And to get that power of the people requires coverage that this be shown to the people, and the press has been very reluctant to get this out into the world. I'm very pleased to see the press is here today to cover this. I just hope that you can be more successful in letting everyone know that this is happening.
That's a perfect lead into what is the next step. There are a lot of good organizers in this room. We have a couple of congressmen on Long Island that don't agree with us. And I think we have to disagree in the right way. We need to communicate with them. We need to make certain our voices are heard. You know what to do. Congressman King has, in other respects, indicated respect for labor standards in his history. I think that if this issue were brought before him with the varied impact, not only is it with respect to jobs and wage standards, but also the impact on sovereignty, as you explained to us, this could be a compelling argument. Congressman Meeks at his district now moved so he includes a piece of Long Island. So I think we need to welcome Congressman Meeks to the land of passion and let him know that with this little piece of Long Island he represents, come with it strong views. And we believe in our sovereignty. We believe in clean water. We believe in clean air. We believe in a good environment. We believe in good jobs. And we believe in a future for our families and our kids. And that's the message that we have to give. Just to conclude, sir, you hit the nail on the head. It's the lack of job and opportunities. And we thank Congressman Bishop for standing with us on this issue. I want to thank you also for all those other many issues and fights that you've taken with respect to the job issues and with economic growth. And there are many of them. And there's a fight every day. And he fights it against people who are off in weird directions for their own ideologies, against the better interests of America. And so I feel very comfortable being with all of us with the flag which belongs to all of us and to our future. Thank you for being here.